final review for this week is a Netflix movie directed and written by Adam McKay, starring Leonardo DiCaprio, Jennifer Lawrence, Kate Blanchett, Timothy Chalamet, Tyler Perry, Meryl Streep, Jonah Hill. I'm sure there's somebody in there that I'm forgetting. It's Netflix Don't Look Up, a satirical take on politics and science and how they do not mesh very nicely with one another, and the impending cataclysmic event of a comet headed directly towards planet Earth. So what did you think of this? Don't Look Up.
I mean, I thought it was just, I mean, if you've watched Vice and you've watched The Big Short, it was very much like that kind of style Adam McKay movie. It's taking a serious thing. It's implementing, humor to whatever degree. This is, an allegory for, the climate crisis for people that don't really.
When was this written?
I think it was written last year.
Because I wonder
2 years ago, I think is when it was written. Then,
okay.
Yeah.
Because I seriously wonder. It's obviously, it says client, that seems like the obvious thing, but you wonder how much of it is a commentary on how the government's handled COVID.
I mean, could be. I mean, it was sort of funny. Like Janie and I were talking about this. I think to me, it's one of those things where it was written for this, but it's also like it's evergreen because like the government just handles a lot of things poorly. And, I think that's kind of where it's at. Like he makes it, because he's a proponent of, climate, of helping climate change and things like that. But I think it's, climate change is just one of the things that everyone like the government definitely handles poorly. And so you could look at it as COVID, you could listen as the financial crises over the years. You could look at it as, student loan debt, you could look at all these things. And so you can climate crisis is what he was going for. But I literally think you could take this movie and make it anything you want, where you're like, well, the government has handled this poorly, and you're not wrong. I mean, I think and that may have what he was maybe going for when he initially wrote it. And then, people are saying, oh, this is the climate crisis. I mean, I really like Adam McKay movies. I mean, The Big Short is one of my favorite movies. Vice is very good. So for me, to me, I really enjoyed it. It was as enjoyable as it was sad and annoying, because you're just like, oh, this is literally how the government kind of seems to handle things. I mean, it's not as exaggerated in the real world as it is in here, but it almost is. It's weird to say that. It's like, but there are moments, I'm sorry, where it does seem like, and it doesn't matter whether you're a Trump supporter or, Biden's, all these things aside, it's like there are moments where whoever you elected in, you have to feel like they're not necessarily doing what they say. And that may be different for whatever side you're on. I'm not gonna get political, but I'm just saying it's either way, there's probably a point where like, well, I thought I was gonna get this from this person and I didn't. And Meryl Streep's character is very much that. Like, there's obviously a direction that her character is supposed to be going in a person, but there is a thing where it's like, she's supposed to be this, this woman president, this attractive woman president. Her son is like weird about it, Jonah Hill. And like, he's my favorite character in the movie. I will say like 100%, like him just being such a disgrace is so funny to me. Leonardo DiCaprio is great. I love seeing Leo as someone that wasn't like initially like handsome. He wasn't supposed to be, he was a nerd.
Yeah.
And seeing Jennifer Lawrence as also a nerd. It was fun seeing these people that are normally like the star of the movie, and they are the stars of the movie, but like the glamorous star of the movie, being these nerds. They make fun of the fact that, they're from Michigan State and all these things like that, which is funny to me being a Michigan fan. But to me, it was this kind of movie where, it's a good movie. The problem in Lays is that the people that need to actually see movies about this don't actually watch movies like this. Mm-hmm. So they aren't going to see anything different. They're the guy that has the hat on in this crowd in the movie that looks up and sees the comment, but that person's never actually looking up and seeing the movie. So that's the problem with this movie is, and that's fine. I mean, it is what it is. For someone like me that involves himself in the government to whatever degree I do, this movie was the right amount of humor, hit the right amount of notes, and it also had Timothy Chalamet. So all those things were like, pretty good for me. I mean, like, is it the greatest movie of all time? No, but it's a watchable movie. It's funny enough, and it puts people in kind of a, if one person saw this movie that didn't believe in the way the government works, I think it would help. I really do. I really do. What did you think, Brent?
First of all, Timothy Chalamet's hair extensions in this were terrible.
Hilariously.
I don't know if that was on
the point.
Yeah, I don't know if
I think it was
on purpose.
I think it was on purpose.
Bad. It was
so
bad.
Funny. Yeah.
Timothy Chalamet. I'll never forget that. What's his name? Timothy Chalamet. Dune Review.
Timothy Oliphant.
Check that out. No, that's a different guy. I felt like I agree with you about the Leo thing. It was nice to see him play a character who wasn't like king shit.
He's not the hero at all until ever, really. I mean, he turns around, but he's never a hero in this movie.
No, he's not. Yeah, it was kind of cool to see him play that character. It was just like, for me, at times it was like a little bit too heavy-handed with the satire. It's like, okay, we get it. Jonah Hill's supposed to be, somebody's son.
Sure.
Like we understand. We understand all of this. And so that was the thing. I felt like it was probably a little bit too long. I mean, it was almost 2.5 hours.
Honestly, like now at this time, movies are just that long now.
But
isn't that weird
though?
A lot of movies are though. That's like the weird thing. Like and I don't disagree with you, Breton. It's just like I've now come to the fact that a movie is more than 2 hours long. And I don't really like that so much. And so like if a movie's shorter than 2 hours, I'm like, well, that was quick. Yeah, and I respect it. It's like we love Pig because it was an hour and 28 minutes.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
And it moved.
Do shorter movies. That's our pledge for 2022, everyone. Do shorter movies. You can still have a good movie.
I think it was like, if you're going to have a movie that long, you have to justify it being that long. And I didn't think that there was anything here that justified that movie being that long. There was I got very frustrated at times with the choices of some of the characters. And I'll be honest with you, and I kind of alluded to this earlier about like thinking, like when I was talking about flying over the ocean or whatever, I worry about stuff that realistically I need not worry about. The ending made me extremely uncomfortable, like extraordinarily uncomfortable, because that's one of the things that I worry about is like cataclysmic events, like a comet or the Yellowstone supervolcano or like super tsunamis or the Ring of Fire just all going off at once. Like I worry about stuff like this. I know that I need not worry about it, but the ending of this movie made me extraordinarily uncomfortable because of how it ends. And I did find there was a mid-credit and an end credit, and I found the mid-credit scene to be very, very funny, but also very like, oh God, why don't they have any clothes on? Because they were all old people, what I mean? Like nobody.
I mean, that's kind of the point.
Saggy asses, and but I think that also it played into like mass hysteria really well, as far as these people like losing it and going on these shows and yelling, we're all gonna fucking die and all this. And then also the whole concept of and this is to me more important really than the message about like climate change or whatever. There's really important things going on in the world, and people don't pay attention to them because they're worried about what celebrity's dating who. And the Ariana Grande and Kid Cudi story arc was a perfect example of that. And also her song was hilarious. If you actually, it was great. Like listen to the lyrics, it was extremely funny. But
100%.
Yeah, I mean, aside from the ending making me really, really uncomfortable, and it was a little too long. There was a little bit too heavy-handed with some of the liberal leanings. Otherwise, I felt it was good movie. It was a solid 7.5.
Yeah, I would say for me, it's probably like a 7.8, 7.9. So I'm not like much different than you on that. And I look at it because I was telling James, like, I'm not going to look at this as a climate crisis movie. I'm literally just going to look at this as a movie.
Yeah,
because we already
it's political
knew
satire. That's really
right. And I I love political satire, right or left. I think it's funny. If you can do it right, it's the perfect way to do it, because as someone who covered politics 7 years of my life, basically, it's all set up for political satire. That whole thing is just a shit show. There's no other way to say it. I mean, so to make fun of it, it's right there to be made fun of. And I think if someone's going to do it, it's Adam McKay. Anyhow, that's just the way he does it. He has a good way of implementing those things, taking something that can be very heavy-handed. Like The Big Short was very intellectual, and he was able to make it done for the layman's person. Because I've read a lot of those financial books, and the way he did that movie was a good way of summarizing it in a sense of like, you don't have to be a genius to understand this. Here's the way to understand this. And this is like the climate crisis. Like, you don't have to be a genius to understand this. But if the comment was, you don't have to be a genius to understand that either. That like there's things like that. So, like I said, I don't rate it much different than you do. Because I think there is a difference between jumping from a seven high sevens to an 8. I mean, I really do, but it's still something I would recommend to people. I've had people recommend it to me, and I was like, oh, actually, I'm watching for the pod, listen this week for our talk about it. So, yeah.